Are we over the United win yet? No, of course we are not. And we're here to discuss it for another significant period of time. United fans, I have no sympathy for you. I don't know. I was going to go into some monologue there about how I sympathise for you, but I don't. I don't, because none of you ever sympathise for us, so why would I? Anyway, I'm going to be joined by two fantastic people to discuss yesterday's game and look ahead to next week, whilst, after shaving, looking like a complete thug. But we're going to push through that and enjoy this evening's show. I'm joined by two men that could. I mean, I'm assuming they've got phobias of razors at this point from looking at their faces. Johnny boy, you in particular. It's look. I mean, it does look a little bit thinner than normal. What have you?
I cleaned it up.
You cleaned it up. You cleaned it up.
Yeah. It was
why?
getting
Why
a
did you
little.
do
It was
that?
getting a little. It was getting a little unruly. So I needed to do something with it. But that's how it goes. It's like it's a cycle, right?
Yes, I don't mind doing mine like this because then it feels nice. Just like stroke it, and I can stroke it like I'm thinking.
Like you're thinking, not because you're thinking.
I'm actually thinking of nothing. Well, actually, no, I'm thinking of Thomas Partey mainly.
And Mohamed El Neni.
Yes, which I'm sure we're going to do a lot of talking about very soon.
Oh, yeah.
French, how are you doing, mate? Are you good? Are you well?
Yeah, man. Yeah. All good. Had an excellent weekend. Absolutely buzzing still after the result. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this show after this dub, man. I was ready for it either way. I watched it with a friend who is a United fan, and
brilliant.
Yeah, I was all in, and it was just fantastic. So yeah, loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I loved. I watched the highlights of the kickoff with Hugh Wizzy on True Geordie's channel, and him giving it to is it Mukola? Is that his name? The guy? Yeah. And it was brilliant. It was just brilliant watching that back. So yeah, fantastic stuff. And we're going to talk about it even more and get your guys' thoughts. So John, just give me your initial reaction, because the first time we've beaten United at Old Trafford since 2006, first time we've beaten a Big Six away side since 2015. It's a historic. It sounds silly, but I look at it as a historic moment at the moment.
It is a historic moment, and it's definitely one of those feelings that we had in 2015 when we won away at City. Remember, that was that whole Coquelin, Cazorla midfield, and it was almost like we found this blueprint. We've discussed it on the pod before. This blueprint of how to go away to a Big Six side and get a result, because I think that was the last big result away that we've gotten was that 2015 game, and then if you look at when the last time we beat United at Old Trafford in the league, it's concerning. But look, there needs to be progress that gets made, and I don't think there's any way to look at this game as anything other than a movement in the right direction. There was this big kind of problem on our back that we needed to get rid of, and we needed to shake that. There was a lot of things that needed to get shaken off this game, especially Aubameyang's goal drought, putting in a good performance away from home against a top six side. All of those were completed. So when you're looking at whether we actually it's good. It was good. It was good. And historically, it's interesting. If you look at the statistics of us beating United away, all the way from 1985 to 1998, 1990, 2006, when Adebayor scored, the last 6 away wins at United have all been 1-0 victories, which I thought was pretty interesting. So it's definitely a difficult fixture for us, no matter who's the manager, no matter who's the side. It's just one of those rivalries that everyone thinks of the North London Derby, but when I'm looking at the schedule, I'm also looking at that United fixture, because it's one that's very difficult, and it's good that we got the points, and we did it in a very convincing style, which is the key here.
French, as John says, it's always a difficult fixture for us, United away. However, this season, I kind of targeted this fixture as the one that I thought we had the most chance of finally ending that drought of winning away against a Big Six side. Did you look at it similarly, or did you think it would be harder than it maybe was in reality?
Well, I had that in the last couple of seasons, in a way, to be completely honest. I mean, I think the last time we were there was Ollie, and I think we had Emery, and it was still, I think we came with a draw. The last couple of times I think we've gone there with a draw. So they've been in a bad situation or under bad management and look likely. So it kind of, for me, I was expecting a draw, to be honest. I did think we had a very good chance of going and getting something, but as John said, it is a historically bad, kind of more difficult place for us to go. I think Aubameyang is the first Arsenal player to score a penalty there in the Premier League, which is insane if you think about it. Since '92 or whatever. So, it's clearly a very difficult place to go, and for us to go there and get that away victory, 1-0 against the top 6 side, I think it was absolutely huge, definitely historic, and I didn't necessarily see it coming, but I didn't think we'd lose. As we discussed on the members pod, I didn't see us losing the game. I knew we would defend well, and they'd have a tough time breaking us down. And to be fair, we could have scored more than one. So we did extremely well on the day. I'm very happy.
Yeah, I got that same feeling that I didn't feel like this is a game we were going to lose, but we've gone up there and drawn now quite a few times, and I kind of got the feeling that was the way it was going to go. I was doing a preview show with some United boys on another channel, and they were so confident. Like, they were ridiculously. The guy on there, Was, his name was calling it out. It was going to be 4. He was so when
they were convinced.
Yeah, they were utterly convinced, to be fair.
I don't get... They did well in the Champions League, but they just got beat like 5, they got spanked by Spurs. Yeah, it was like it was a joke. So I don't know where...
Well, I think there is still that historic thing on their end, isn't it? Where they must just be used, from a Manchester United fan's point of view, they must be used to us going there and just not quite, so there's that thing of, like, they still have that historic view of how it plays out. I remember the day yesterday, I was coming out of Asda, and there was a guy who saw me with my, United, my Arsenal kit on, with the Gunners on the back and everything.
Asda's like a cheap supermarket over here, John.
I think it's maybe the version of Walmart, actually. And
I got this was my Medema one.
Nice.
And he goes,
Medema.
He's like, oh yeah, you're going to lose tomorrow. And he just yelled at me, and my mate who was with me, who's a United fan, and I'm like, nah, we're not losing. I wasn't like, again, same thing. I was like, we're not going to lose. We're not going to lose. Maybe a draw, like maybe we'll win, but we're not going to lose. And he was convinced, and he looked at me like almost in disbelief. Like, why does this guy have any kind of confidence? It's funny how they think that. And then this morning I came out, someone saw me with my Arsenal kit, and was like, oh yeah, showed his shirt, had the Arsenal kit as well. So yeah, it's just nice time to be an Arsenal fan, man.
It is. It's a wonderful time to be an Arsenal fan at the moment, and we're helped by our spine of the side being utterly reimagined under Arteta, with not only his coaching but the additions that we made this summer with Gabriel and Partey. We're going to go through. We're going to talk about the lineup specifically first. Like, John, when it came out and I saw that El Neni and Partey were together, I'll be honest, my initial reaction was, oh God. I was like, oh no.
No, and it's right there. We have the receipts. I said, listen, guys, El Neni's been a different player. We've heard conversations that Arteta's had with him. We've heard Arteta's statements about El Neni and his role in the squad. We've heard about El Neni talking about his confidence and building and feeling like he belongs here. We've seen a much more progressive, attacking, adventurous El Neni ever since he started getting regular games under Arteta. So when I saw that partnership, I said, this isn't going to be as defensive as people think it is. And the guy, and I've said this since before the season. I knew he had another level in him. And when you look at the kind of style of the player he is, right? He is very, very technical on the ball. He's very tidy. Let me put. Because people hear the word technical and they think like Cazorla, and that's not the kind of player he is really. But he makes good passes. He makes and he makes them when he needs to make them. He very, very, very seldom loses the ball. It was just a confidence thing with him. If he could learn to pass forward and progress the play instead of maybe being afraid, he was just okay passing sideways. Which, by the way, people think sideways passing is not a good thing. Like, you need to be good at that as well. It's it is a skill to have, being able to switch play from one side to the other without losing possession and getting in good areas. That's also important. He does it very well. So yes, I think Partey helped open his game up a lot because it allowed him a little bit more freedom to move forward. But when you add the engine on the guy with the fact that he's actually quite gifted on the ball, and now you're adding a more adventurous side to him, it is no doubt to me when I saw that we're going to see something cool. And I even said it in the chat, and that's what happened. So I was really happy to see that. I'm really happy he took the chances, and I'm really excited to see if this will be one of the blueprints going forward away. Maybe not necessarily all the games, because I think that we're going to need a little bit of a difference in tactics when we're trying to break down certain teams, and maybe Ceballos would be a little bit better fit there, maybe in Xhaka in certain games. But the fact that he stepped in and he took his chances and he's done well this season, I'm super happy for the guy.
Go on, Fred.
Yeah, we called it. I mean, you've taken most of the El Neni pie, but I will still say best Egyptian in the league. The Pyramid Pirlo, absolutely fantastic.
Pyramid
And we called
Pirlo,
it,
I
John.
love it.
That's brilliant.
We called it, didn't we? We called
Yeah.
it. So I'm just really happy to see him perform in this way. And
yeah, and look, and if it's anything, it's a blueprint for players that are out on loan that they got a chance if they come back in and they put, we call him Pyramid Pirlo. Maybe if Guendouzi's watching this over there, he's going to come back for you. He'll be like the croissant Cazorla or something. I don't know. Whatever he wants. If he wants to come in, there's a chance. You just got to work hard and you got to listen to the coach and you got to do your job. And that's what El Nani did. And now look at him. So I'm very happy for him.
These nicknames are hilarious. Pyramid Pirlo is amazing. I was thinking of other ones up, and there's a fine line that we need to avoid crossing. But yeah, it's it's funny, and I think that when you look at kind of the impact, and I mean, I know John that you watched back the tactical breakdown I put out earlier today. I know that you've seen that.
Yeah.
But I was talking about the way in which, like, Side was passing. We're talking about El Neni's passing statistics. He had 93% passing accuracy. He had 100% passing accuracy of passes into the final third, and he made 11 of them, and all of them reached their target. And that in itself goes to show that he is more. And I hold my hands up completely. I'm the same as French, holding up my hands, eating my humble pie about El Neni 100%, because I said the guy could only basically, he's a very passive midfielder, was the way I summed him up. And I couldn't be happier to be wrong about it. I really couldn't. And it's a nice, isn't it, where you don't back yourself into a corner on an opinion and you can change your mind. It's wonderful. But it's just a case of really enjoying what the fruits of our labour of being wrong, or in your case being right, and backing the guy the whole time. But yeah, obviously the other man
I was backing him as well. I just want to get that in.
Yeah, towards the end,
I was backing
maybe.
him as well. Don't bring me in with you there, Tom.
No, but look, Tom's 100%. You're 100% right, Tom. And it's a question of your opinion can change on a player. All right, there was maybe a good reason why you could be skeptical about El Neni, especially when you're looking at our lack of creativity. But when you see these like basic things that a player can do right, and he has confidence. A confident player is a very powerful thing. Right? Because we've seen players that can even excel above their skill level when they're playing with confidence. And if Arteta is getting these players to do that, which at least last game certainly looked like it, I mean, that's exciting for me. That's exciting for me more so than if we, all these crazy signings, even though we definitely need some and whatever. But we'll take it one game at a time, and that was exciting for me.
French, Thomas Partey, he's come in, and I know you watched some of the tactical breakdowns over the summer of looking into him, although I know John may have missed a few. He did exactly what he's been doing for Atletico. He drove the ball from our half into the opposition half. He intercepted, he made tackles. Even when he lost the ball, he ran back and recovered it almost immediately. It was poetic just seeing everything kind of just divulge onto the Old Trafford pitch. And also the tweet that I put out on Twitter a couple of months ago saying that Aouar improves us, but Partey transforms us. Yeah. He really has transformed and has made the difference in the big game. And I feel that El Neni could have had the game that he had without Partey there, maybe next to Xhaka. But I feel that if it was Xhaka over Partey, there was no chance we were competing in that game anywhere near as much as we were with Partey there. My question to you, though, is that we obviously played against a side that did attack at times, did come onto us. And when we played against Leicester at the Emirates, they sat very far back, low block, didn't enable us to really kind of break on them at all because they didn't really commit too many men forwards. There are going to be teams, possibly Villa at the weekend, possibly Leeds the week after that, although I see them both as quite attacking sides still, that these teams could copy the Leicester blueprint and then recreate that low block, which would, in my opinion, negate the good work that we saw of El Neni and Partey because they wouldn't have the opportunity to do what they did. So do you still maintain this pairing, or do you think you throw a Ceballos in there? Do you throw a Pepe? Do you throw a Saka into sort of the middle of the park a little bit more? Do you go more attacking? Or do you maintain the consistency and have this kind of really resolute base of the midfield to then build upon?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say it's amazing that they are the first two players that we can talk about and big up our two midfielders. And, we clearly won the midfield battle on the weekend. And that was the problem area at the start of the season. So that's amazing to see at the start of before we'd signed anyone. So in terms of the next game, I mean, obviously, yeah, John mentioned it, this might not be the pairing for absolutely every game. Maybe, like you said, we do need to throw in another man. I definitely do see Saka, sliding more into that midfield when we're attacking, even with a three. But if we're going against someone who's completely sitting in a low block like Leicester, we're going to need to find different sort of options to break them down. Yeah, I could see Ceballos will need game time, of course, and he's going to be getting into the team in those sorts of occasions. I mean, the rotation is going to be important, and that's one of the things that we mentioned about El Neni is that it's just incredible. We have a squad option that before we thought was useless, that now all of a sudden looks fantastic. It doesn't mean he has to start every single game, but the point that we made after after the Leicester performance was that this Xhaka and Partey don't need to start every single game. Partey and Ceballos, we know one name that we want on the start of the team sheet, and I think who we partner him with and who we put in front of him will vary depending on the kind of opposition that we need. But we now have a linchpin, something that we can build the center of our midfield around. And as you mentioned, it transforms us. It doesn't just improve us. It's a completely different option. We have more respect from players on the pitch, from pundits. Everyone's compared. Even Roy Keane compared him to Vieira. We're getting all the praise from everyone because we have something that we haven't had in a little while. Which is a bit of steel, a bit of authority in the center of that pitch. In terms of, Xhaka has authority in a sense of he commands, but in terms of moving around, being everywhere, doing it all. He's not just a defensive-minded player, as we covered. He can carry the ball through. He can play little chips over Pogba's head into Bellerin, bringing in the right-hand side. The right-hand side's never looked so good. We've been very left side biased for a while, and we, in the last game, I think Partey was a bit more central. This time he was more shifted to the right, and El Neni was to the left. And we saw him continuously, and El Neni, to be fair to him, getting balls into Willian and Bellerin, and eventually, that's how a few chances and the penalty even came around. So, I think they'll call for different things, but the linchpin will, of course, always be Partey.
Yeah, of course. And he's not only the person, obviously, he's anchoring that midfield, but he's also driving it forwards and creating those plays and allowing us to escape when teams kind of press us very high, like Leicester did at the Emirates last season when they pressed us and we weren't really able to escape that high press, whereas now we have the option to be able to. Let's talk about some of the players that didn't maybe get as much praise. We can obviously mention Gabriel in a little bit, but to give some of the other players some praise, Bellerin looks a different player than the player that finished last season. He's coming on leaps and bounds. He's returning to that form that we've seen him perform on time and time again. And the thing is, and I'm guilty of this as well, and I think other people, of course, are too, but we're very guilty of just kind of going hot and cold on a player very quickly, and all of a sudden you're thinking maybe we need to replace him, maybe Mainsley needs to come in and be our right back. But I'm very happy that Bellerin is now really kind of improving on things and really getting back to that old form. John French touched on that right-hand side's a lot stronger than it was previously. And not only Bellerin, but I thought Willian had a very decent game as well, and had a very unlucky to hit the bar as well with an opportunity from outside the box. So talk to me about Arsenal's right-hand side and how you evaluate it at the moment.
So, yeah, Bellerin I thought was excellent. And I don't know exactly what it is that has given him that kind of, maybe it's the tucked in shirt thing going on. Maybe, maybe it's the Gary Lineker facial hair. But I don't really know. Whatever it is, it's working really well. And clearly, people were really hard on Bellerin because of his injury. Well, let me rephrase that. People were really hard on him, and I think it was unfair because he was coming back from an injury. And before his injury, he was extremely good. He was doing really, really well. He was in great form. He got injured. People forget that. And then it took him a while to start coming back. People were already getting a little bit frustrated maybe with Arteta a little bit. We weren't getting, there were some dangerous results that we had, and we were seeing Pepe struggling on the right-hand side, and people wanted Maitland-Niles there. It was this whole mess over there on the right-hand side. And then meanwhile, Bellerin was just trying to recover from an injury. So I think what we're seeing right now is a player who is getting back to the form he was in pre-injury. And I think that's the explanation for what we're seeing from Bellerin. I don't think it's this revelation of a player. It was always there. It was just we just needed to be patient. And we were saying this previously on the podcast. Just the guy's still injured. Maybe there was a question mark in the head because with an injury like that, like a serious ligament injury, you never really know, right? But you're still positive, and you're going, just wait, let's see what happens with the injury. And this is why. Because the player's coming back. A lot of times, if it's done correctly, that leg or the ligament, because of the strengthening and the conditioning that they do on it, it comes back even better sometimes. So it was really a question of when for me with Bellerin, not if. And it's not a surprise to me that he's come in and done so well when he's playing. And today was a perfect example of that. Another player I thought that didn't get good enough credit was Lacazette. And I thought that, you know, he got subbed off. He didn't score. You know, there was that deflection off. I was looking at his stats. I'm trying to pull him up right now, but he had an excellent game, and I think a little bit below the radar. And when you're looking at, like, I think he had the most interceptions, even though he was playing a center forward.
Well, El Neni had 9, so if Lacazette had more than that, that's incredible.
I want to
I'm
pull
just
him
going
up.
on Y-Scout now and have a look.
Okay, here we go.
I think it was
No Arsenal player
11
made more ball recoveries, 9, made more tackles, 4, or created more chances, 2, than Lacazette during his time on the pitch, and that wasn't even a full 90 minutes. So he was doing a lot of work, that kind of work that we always praised Lacazette for, and said that this is the stuff that he brings to the team, even though he's not scoring goals. It's that, like, almost other midfielder in the front, where he's dropping back, he's winning balls, he's creating havoc, and then when you add Partey and El Neni to that, United just couldn't deal with it. They just could not deal with it. And I thought he had a great game under the radar. I thought Gabriel was, I mean, obviously awesome. I thought Holding did really, really well. There were some shaky moments with Holding, but Leno really didn't have anything to do. And Aubameyang, I thought, besides the penalty, was one of the, I don't want to say weakest links because that's unfair, but he definitely was caught flat-footed a lot of the time. His runs weren't that great. But look, he stood up to that penalty spot when it mattered. He got us a point, got us a goal, and 3 points at Old Trafford. You can't really complain. So he followed through when he needed to, and I thought he had a really good chance on goal as well in the first half. And then in the second one, there was like a deflection. Lacazette was on through. I think it was the second half. And Lacazette was through, put him through, and then it took a little deflection off, but we've seen him score for there so many times. So unlucky for him, but he got a goal in his name, so that's good as well.
Yeah, it was just seeing that right-hand side improve. I mean, a lot of people kind of had the obsession when you see, like, Arsenal's left-hand side has been so deadly with Tierney, Saka, Aubameyang on that side, and Maitland-Niles as well when he's played, or Mainsley rather. Even I say it sometimes. Someone was having a go at you during the chat for saying Maitland-Niles.
I meant Mainsley, sorry guys. and I also just realized I didn't really answer. We talked about players we can do as well, but I didn't really talk about the right-hand side, but sorry. But
no, that's fine. I mean, when you look at that kind of each side though, I think people get very obsessed with looking at the side that's maybe not performing as well as the other side because Aubameyang and Tierney were performing so well together, maybe that they were overshadowing that right-hand side. But if you look at most teams, they're either one of those two sides is unbelievably good. Even the biggest sides in the world, like you look at Bayern Munich, for instance, their left-hand side of Alphonso Davies and be it Sane at the moment or be it Gnabry, whoever plays on that side, it is usually much, much better than the other side because you haven't, maybe the fullback on that other side isn't as good. So maybe Benjamin Pavard isn't as good as, well, he definitely isn't as good in my opinion as Alphonso Davies. But like you look at Manchester City, Kyle Walker and Mahrez on that side, whereas on the left-hand side, you've got Sterling, but then behind Sterling has been either Benjamin Mendy, who's been in out of form, Nathan Ake, who's just come in, or Zinchenko. So the left-hand side's maybe not functioning as well as the right. Most sides have a more dominant side of the pitch in which you've got that higher amount of consistent quality. And I think often people get very sidetracked, and maybe that kind of emphasizes the issues that maybe Bellerin has had more often because the left-hand side has been so good. But I do admit that there has been times where, say, Bellerin's defensive flaws have let him down, but he's been improving that a lot. His defensive side of his game was excellent at Manchester United. He got back, he tackled, his positional discipline was really, really good. And that's certainly something that I think he's going to improve on and grow. Now, there's another player in the back line that went understated too, and that was Rob Holding. French, he was rushed back into the team. I mean, he had one training session supposedly before this game, which when you think about it is unbelievably risky, but the risk paid off. And I think there's a big obsession around William Saliba, of course. He's 19 years old. He's a young guy who spent £27 million on him. Rob Holding, 25 years of age. He's English, which is very unfashionable a lot of the time, especially at Arsenal. He's from Bolton. I mean, he's from the same place as Paddy McGuinness, so that kind of brings things down a bit. But when you're looking at like him as a player, he cost 1.5 million, I think it was, and he has been, I mean, for value for money. The performances he's putting in, like FA Cup finals when he played against Chelsea with Per Mertesacker. He played, of course, in the one against Chelsea that we most recently had as well, playing next to, I want to say, David Luiz. And so he really has kind of proved a lot of doubters wrong, I feel. And coming back from his injury, there was some issues. Like he kind of struggled in the same way that Bellerin did coming back from that injury. But he's been a 7 or 8 out of 10 every single time he's played for me. He's been really good.
Fantastic. I think, well, he was about to go out on loan, wasn't he, at the start of the season? And that all turned around
Newcastle.
really late. And so, yeah, for him to come back when he was meant to be out for 3 weeks, I mean, you know, I call him Holdinho when I'm watching with my mates, and they never get it. They're like, why do you rate him so much? And I say, because in big games, he comes through. And he does. He doesn't let me down. He can lock down people like Mane and Costa. And, you know, he might, you know, ever have wobbles every now and then. He's had a lot of injuries. It's been unlucky. But I think when it comes to like a big performance, Holding's up for it. You know, he'll give it all and he'll leave it on the pitch. And there was one point where he went down. I think he had a cramp or something. And, you know, he was about to get subbed off for Granit Xhaka. And he hopped back up and he kept on going. And I was just very impressed to see him carry out for that entire 90. And he was fantastic. And I think, again, some credit, I suppose, has to go to Arteta because, you know, we're mentioning all these players that have been maybe out of, you know, injured or fringe players or on their way, you know, like El Neni, maybe just in the dust. And they've all made comebacks, you know, and this is just a continuous story under this coach that he keeps bringing these players back from obscurity or from a place of doubt, maybe not obscurity with Varian or Holding, and just showing that they've got something to contribute to this team if they work hard. One point I did want to make about the right side as well that I do feel was important in this game is how much it allowed Aubameyang to kind of come more infield, you know, because we do have him out left and he needs to be kind of coming in more on when the build-up play is happening on the right. He has more time to sort of come in and he finds himself in these spaces where he could do these little dinks to Willian and got that chance more centrally, as John mentioned. And I feel that we can do that better when we progress play up the right. So there is something to be said for me about that balance that we've managed to add. You know, I think, like you said, people maybe overemphasize it because there is often a bias, but certainly for me, it was just really nice to see that that not just the right hand side, but the way that allowed the Aubameyang to come in and those guys to interact a little bit more within the box.
Yeah, 100%. Like when you look at the options that we've got a centre back, and they seem to be dwindling by the second with the amount of injuries that we get, even though we've had about 50 at the start of the season. It's great to see when some of the options that maybe we didn't look upon as the long term people, like Holding, I don't think many people did. I think at the start of the season, a lot of people thought Saliba was going to come straight in and kind of smash things, and he hasn't done that. Luiz has, of course, now been injured, and Luiz, Luiz is a really weird one to kind of evaluate because he offers a lot in terms of his passing range. And I think defensively he has definitely improved under Arteta as well. There is always that kind of sinking feeling that he's going to do something classic David Luiz at some point. And he's got that kind of jeopardy about him that Mustafi has as well. And whilst I'm happy to praise them for the kind of the growth that they've had under Arteta, you can't kind of get past that Mustafiism that David Luiz also has. So the quicker in my mind that those two are moved on and we can start kind of cultivating a consistent form and group of defenders at the club, the better. Even though I'm always praising the guys when they do show up and they do improve, and I think that's certainly something. We've got obviously Marie to come back as well, and I'm genuinely excited about what Marie can bring because one, Gabriel needs a bloody rest. Like this kid's been playing week in week out, and we desperately need another left-footed centre back to be there to keep Arteta's kind of system working from that side of the pitch. And Kolasinac, I just don't trust to be a left-footed centre back and to come in. So that's going to be interesting when it happens. Let's talk about the manager. It's been nearly half an hour and we've not brought his name up. But obviously he chose to line up. He's cultivated this idea of being defensively astute, and I don't mean to call people out specifically in the chat box, but say Javier, who is one of our long-term listeners, I often have conversations with him in the comment sections of our videos, and he asked me the question about what like he thinks that maybe Arteta's a bit out of his depth because what's his playing style? Like, is Arsenal boring Arsenal again? We don't really show any verve or dynamism or creative flair. And I would respond to that by saying, John, that we're now defensively astute, and we've waited for so long for Arsenal to be defensively astute, to be a side that doesn't leak silly goals, doesn't make mistakes, doesn't go up the under end of the pitch and then make yourselves vulnerable. I think Arteta's had a lot of challenges, and of course he realised the defensive frailties that we had by switching to 3 at the back, and then eventually he's trying to transition that to a 4, and we needed to add personnel in the form of Partey, bring El Neni back from loan, sign Gabriel to make that a reality. But gradually we are. I mean, what John, tell me what is so wrong about being defensively solid.
There's nothing, and you hear trust the process, but this is part of the process. Our biggest issue was that we would lose games because of our defense. We're not losing games because of the defense now. In fact, our defense is helping us have a chance to win the games now. Now it's a question of this overall balance between the movement of the ball from defense to attack, and then actually getting into finishing the chances that we are creating, which are not that many right now, which is one thing that we do need to work on. But it is a process. The biggest problem at this club was defensive, and that is a systematic problem. All right. Attack is just get the ball to the attacker and get it into a dangerous position. Right. But defensive, it has to be done as a team. It's a systematic approach that you have to take, and everyone needs to buy into it from the top of the pitch all the way to the keeper. And it needs to be something, and you see it happening right now. We've conceded the least goals in the Premier League right now. And this is after playing Manchester United away, Manchester City, Liverpool. When you look at those teams that we're playing and that we were able to keep United, who have been flying with goals, their problem isn't scoring. They got a lot of threats. They have Greenwood, they have Rashford, they have Pogba. They got a lot of attacking threats, and we kept them to 0.39, I think, expected goals. We absolutely shut them down, and we've done that.
We shut them down so much. You forgot Fernandes.
Yeah, Fernandes had to go off, and he wasn't even playing. And then, what's the guy from Dawson's Creek? He came on, and he didn't do anything. And, he was useless too. And he's, you know what? And that guy's probably wondering, what the hell am I doing on this team? Like, I don't understand.
What was Ollie doing taking off Bruno for Van der Beek, though? You're chasing the game. You're trying to get a goal, and you bring off arguably one of the Premier League's most creative players in Bruno Fernandes in a like-for-like change for Van der Beek.
It was nonsense. And look, the way we played affected that, right? It was desperation from Ole, and that is good. And if you've looked at the last couple games that we played in the Premier League, teams are having to deal with us in the way we're playing. We haven't had that in a while. It's always been reactive, and now teams are needing to set up to either break us down or to neutralize certain attacks we have. And they've been successful with that. And it's going to take some time maybe to get with like another option in the attack. And that's where the progress is going to come. But the most difficult and most important thing is shoring up the spine of the team, shoring up the defense. And Arteta's done that, and the numbers are there, and you can't really argue against it because it's so obvious. It's not one of those, we've been scraping by the skin of our teeth. I mean, we went from a side under Emery that was facing that in certain games. I'm thinking Watford. I'm thinking all these games that we played where we were facing more shots than anyone in Europe. And we were looking at Leno saving us. We had 3-4 expected goals against during certain games. And now we're keeping teams to under 1. It's amazing what he's done with the defense. And it's extremely exciting because I think that is the bedrock for creating a successful team going forward. If you can get that into the players' heads to defend as a unit, to not concede goals, to have that really it's about that thought in your head when something's going to go wrong, that that you have the tools to deal with whatever attack is coming at you. That is important, and you need that going forward. Now, whether that materializes, I'm confident it will, and I'm touch wood on that, but I'm extremely excited, and we can't look at this defensive performances as a negative. It is absolutely not a negative. It is a positive right now, and it is a building block for moving forward.
There's a word that he uses a lot, wasn't it? I think accountability. I mean, I always think responsibility, but accountability is a fantastic one, and he's coached it into them. And then now we've brought 2 players like Gabriel and Partey, who just naturally have that about them, who both take accountability. They enjoy going for that challenge. Partey loses the ball a couple of times, goes back and gets it immediately because he can do everything. And it's just amazing to see that kind of the vision and the implementation of this kind of vision. He clearly saw we needed it when he was at Man City, when he was playing against us. And now he's realized, well, as soon as he's coming, he's realized. And that's what people said that Emery failed to do. Emery's not fixed the defense. He wasn't able to do that. There was always a criticism under Wenger. So for anyone to complain about it, I really don't understand that. I think it's incredibly weird. We've got the best defensive record in the league now. We've been to Old Trafford, the Etihad, Anfield. And after 7 games, we've only conceded 7 goals, and we've got the best record in the league. I think, it's fantastic, and I'm happy to see this part of the process. And I can build. That is, we build from the back. That's how it's going to improve.
Yeah, like it was so important that we got that signing of Partey over the line. Like I always come back to the Aouar thing, and I still kind of hope that we pull Aouar off at some stage, be it January or in the summer, because I think that is one of the one or two missing pieces of the puzzle for Arteta, is that top quality attacking midfielder that can unlock doors and who is young and is going to progress as well. Partey was needed for the progression. He was needed for the spine, and we desperately needed to improve that spine so badly, and he will enable us to do that. Go on, John. You seem like you're
one thing. All right. Out of 31 of 40 games under Arteta, Arsenal have either kept a clean sheet or conceded only one goal. 31 out of 40 games, either a clean sheet or one goal. Again,
God, that's
crazy.
Mental.
That's a phenomenal record.
Mental. Think about that. As for an Arsenal team, that's revolutionary. It really is revolutionary as to the way that we play.
Like, I thought I heard like Arsenal have dropped more points to winning positions than any other side. That was the case when he took over at the end of last season. But how do we do? It's because we're not scoring enough goals. That's obviously the reason why.
It is. If
we're drawing 1-1s and losing 1-0, and yeah.
That's the missing thing right now. Is the attacking fluidity right now? That's what we're missing.
Let's talk about how do we solve it? How do we solve that problem with the personnel that we've got until January? How do we solve the issue of the lack of creativity?
Okay, I think Ceballos is a key piece there. I think Ceballos is a key piece there only because I think that he will offer that ability to go forward and possibly break the lines. Partey is going to be the key piece to that as well, being able to carry the ball and create threats from the midfield, which is something that we haven't had in a while. Don't want to say his name, but there's one player that could probably help us there. But keeping it players that actually are registered for the squad, maybe one of the younger players, maybe that'll step up out of nowhere, like your Emile Smith-Rowe, or maybe Nelson will come out and start creating. You never know, but there needs to be something. So Frenchie,
I've got a feeling definitely certainly some of the younger players have a chance, but I'm also thinking a lot of the improvement that I've seen more recently, certainly in this most recent game, has been as much about the kind of movement that players that we already have are starting to make, and this kind of understanding they're starting to develop together. Definitely in this last game, our transition play helped us a lot in terms of creativity, in terms of creating chances. So we had a high press in this game, which we don't actually always do. We sort of have a mid press for a lot of the time under Arteta. In this game, we pressed them high up and we created chances from that. So I think maybe if with a player like Partey, a mobile player like El Neni, when we have an opportunity to play a team who will try and play some football, pressing them up the top will give us more creativity, not through by having a new player, but through the kind of approach play that we have. And
I forgot Martinelli.
Yeah, I just saw it in the chat as well.
Yeah, like Martinelli.
That for me, Martinelli coming back is huge. Now, I think there's a big importance that this guy's coming back off a long-term injury to the knee, which, as we know, players at Arsenal have struggled with. Bellerin, Chambers, Holding, the list goes on with the amount of players that have had issues. And Welbeck, like, so many players have had issues with their knees at Arsenal, and coming back from those injuries has kind of been the make or break of those players' careers. We're kind of seeing that with Bellerin and Holding now. How Chambers come back from his is going to be interesting, of course, too. The thing is about Martinelli is there's one thing that we've learned about him is that he's clinical. Is that in front of goal he's deadly. He's like ice cold in front of goal, and if he can be converted to a more central striker, because when he came in as more of a wide player, wide forward, that kind of played through the middle in the Europa League because we had the option to do that. And weirdly good in the air as well for someone so technically gifted with his feet. He has the potential to be Arsenal's number 9 of the future. He has pace. He has strength for someone with such a low centre of gravity as well. He's good at holding players off. And as I say already, like his composure in front of goal is key. And if you can cultivate Martinelli into a competent, consistent striker, then you've got real potential there for the long term to be him, and you don't have to worry about spending money on a forward player when Lacazette goes, because Lacazette's probably going to leave with a year left on his deal, maybe, or he'll leave at the end of his contract. In either case, you're not really going to get too much money in a coronavirus-ravaged world. So you think about what we've got coming through there. You've got Eddie Nketiah as well, who can provide competition for them both in the long term. You've got following Balogun as well in the wings, who increasingly looks to be more likely that he will stay. And we've just signed an 18-year-old plan B guy, which I hate calling him that, but we look at these tall strikers as kind of plan B options, because Arsenal don't really have that currently. We don't have a guy you can fling the ball into the box. We don't have a Fellaini, we don't have a Giroud, we don't have a Fernando Llorente. Like, we don't have those options. And Sebastian Moller, who's coming, who's this 18-year-old 6'5" odd striker. Actually, I think he's a little bit shorter than that, but still, he's 6'3" ish. And developing young players with different characteristics and traits is important, and I think that Arsenal have needed kind of that plan B option off the bench that we've kind of lacked in the future. I mean, we put so many blooming crosses into the box with no one else to go on the end of them. It's incredibly frustrating. But Martinelli's aerial ability is strong, and I'm hoping that maybe that will suit him as well. So whilst, and I agree, Marcusson, Martinelli is not a number 9 at the moment. I agree with you. I see him more as currently a wide player. But I certainly feel that he's someone with the potential to be developed and transitioned into a more central role. At the age that he is at, there is so much scope to change players. You look at what happened with Thierry Henry, you look at what happened with Lauren. Lauren was, of course, more of a winger, transition to a right-back. Winger Henry was a wide man at Juventus, was transitioned to a central player at Arsenal, and then returned to that wide player when he went back to Barcelona. So it's... Nikolai Moller. Nikolai Moller. What did I say? What did I say? Do you remember what I said? I don't know what I said.
No idea.
I don't know what I said. Did I say Thomas Moller? I bet I did. I don't remember what I said now. But we've just got so many options to now change things in the future. And it means that the money that we do have in the end can be kind of spent on that creative player that we will need. And I don't really see. I think Saka could play at 10. I think that Emile Smith-Rowe has a possibility of a future, but I think it's a position that you need to invest in, like really desperately. Just before I throw to the boys for a couple last comments, this is your time to ask questions into the chat box. So if you would like to ask French and John and myself a question, please don't hesitate. Please take this time to throw a question in there now. So, John, we've got an interesting tie in midweek. Mulder in the Europa League, of course, and there's the option for rotation to take place. I expect players to be given a rest. Who are you most excited to kind of see get a few more minutes on the pitch?
Nelson.
Okay,
that's the first one, and Balogun. Obviously, I want to see some stuff from him. But I was really impressed with Nelson. A lot of things he did. I think there's certain things that he needs to work on, and that's going to be by getting game time. Like, I noticed that he does this thing where he just watches the ball too much. He needs to keep his head up, and he needs to, the dribbling's good, but the final ball, and that just comes from experience and playing and having confidence in what you're doing and seeing what's going on and learning how to read the game. But I think that he definitely showed that he wants to put in an effort. And when I see young players doing that, we said it before the season, the Europa League was the launching point for players like Saka and Martinelli. This is the proving ground for a lot of these players to show that they're ready to make the step up into the first team. And I think that we saw shades of that with Reece Nelson's game. And that's why I'm excited to see that. We saw it with Balogun as well. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, but these kind of games are the ones that we expect you to step up in and show that you can actually make a difference and that you have the quality to push your game into a level which is necessary if you're going to make it into the first team. And I think that Nelson showed that, and that's why he's the one that I'm excited about.
French, who are you looking forward to seeing on Thursday?
Two names come to mind. First of all, I'll go with the youngster. It's got to be Joe Willock for me.
Interesting.
What he's brought to that game more recently is something that we just lack at the moment in midfield, which is a runner into the box, a late run, the presence or threat of goals from midfield. He's got an ability to turn, and he just goes forward. He wants to go forward. He's direct, and he showed it in that last Europa League game against Dundalk. He was fantastic for me. Man of the match, I think. Nelson was fantastic as well, but he had the goal to cap it off. And those two, their interplay actually was fantastic in that game. And I think Willock has a shout in terms of being able to get into the first team purely because maybe the pathway is a little bit less blocked. Playing on that right or that left with Aubameyang, Willian, Pepe, Saka. We've got so many kind of wide players in those positions that Nelson has to think about getting past. Whereas Willock, that midfield is still, somewhat of an issue. Creativity we talked about. How do we get that extra goal? And Willock might be the answer to some of that. He's got picked up scrappy goals here and there, things bouncing off of keepers. He's just in the box. He has a natural kind of ability to be in good positions. Now, the rest of it maybe needs some coaching. He's very raw. He might not ever be a top player, but for me, what he offers is something that we lack, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. The other player I'm looking forward to seeing, and this might be a bit controversial, I'll say it a bit tongue-in-cheek, but Granit Xhaka. Because he started the last Europa League game. He didn't start against Manchester United, and I think not that he won't understand obviously that everyone's got to fight for their place, but I think he's going to have a bit of extra want to prove himself, and the Europa League is somewhere where he should be walking around taking it easy. So I'd like to see him just show that he's still around, that he has something to offer in terms of putting that ball in the final third. And I'm interested to see if he starts, what his presence will be and what he'll bring to the game.
It's interesting, isn't it, with Xhaka, because he must be looking at Partey and El Nenny's performance and thinking, my God, how am I going to get back into this team? And I think it would be naive to think that he's not going to play. You know how highly I think of Granit Xhaka. I think he's a very good centre midfielder. And I think it's great that we've now got these competition for places as well. And the fact that Xhaka would be trying to play at the top of his game in the games that necessarily he may have been as keen on, like you say, this Europa League fixture. So it's great that we've got this hunger within the squad to really try and compete. We've got a hell of a lot of questions to get through from the chat box. So we're going to make a start on these. John, starting with Ed's question, Easy Isle. Thank you, Ed, for throwing in your question. Thank you for being a member, as always supporting the channel. He says, El Nenny, how much of this is his improvement and how much do you think is fitting into this structure? I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad that he's doing it.
I think that it's part of it is improvement. I think part of it is, I think the most important part of it is confidence. And he mentioned about feeling like he belonged. It's about showing that, he has a spot on this team. And we always knew that he'll fight for it. We knew he has this incredible engine. We knew that he was tidy on the ball. It was just a question of showing him that you're not just a utility player, or a squad player. You could push for a first team spot. And maybe that was never the case with him. So I think that's what we're seeing a lot here, more so than fitting into the structure, which I think he does. I think there's an aspect of the fact that Partey is able to unlock the ability of him to do that. But he was putting in performances even when Xhaka was playing. So it's not just Partey, even though I think that puts it on another level. It's also his confidence, and it's also what the manager has told him and the way he feels about his role in the squad.
100%. Daniel Robert French asks, do you feel that Mainsley has not played as well as he has this season compared to last?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I think in that Europa League performance, he's definitely, he wasn't as bright as the other kids that coming on. He's not even really a kid anymore, and he's someone who should be challenging for a first team spot. You don't see him get ahead at the moment of someone like Bellerin, the form that he's in. With Tierney out there and Saka showing that he can play in big games away from home, kind of shifting from that left wing back to left midfield and moving up the pitch. It's it's maybe a bit of a difficult pathway for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, for Mainsley, to get into every game.
It's hard to get that habit of saying it.
I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. And I need to think we've got Cedric there as well. I think in these Europa League games, we'll probably see Mainsley getting midfield, and he's definitely one that has to show up and has to give a little bit more, and he's got it in him. We all know he does. So it's something to look for, I suppose, to see him fight back and try and make his way back into that first team.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Mainsley's going to be a bit of a victim to the transition to a back four. Like if you watch the game against Fulham, he was so astute on that left-hand side of the midfield four, being a wing back. You look at him with his age, can he be the long-term replacement for Bellerin? Well, unfortunately, because Bellerin's only 26, it's unlikely that would be the case. We got a very sizable offer from Wolves, they're amassing around £80 million, I think, around that area, and then he obviously got an England call-up, and that raised his pricing, according to Arsenal. So whether or not we get a bid of similar to that next summer, I don't know. It depends how his performances go this season, but I still think he has a place in the squad. I don't think it's very different to the position he had in the squad last season, unfortunately. However, arguably with the way that we're transitioning to a back four, maybe his opportunities will be even more stringent this coming season or this current season. So, yeah, means he's got a really tough time to try and break into this Arsenal team again, and he will know that 100%. John, question from Christopher Fung. He says, "What has happened to John? Who is this imposter with the small beard?"
A lot of things, but no, it is me.
Patrick Carlson says, "How do we stop Grealish?"
That's a great question. He's such a difficult. He's such a difficult player to break down. I think Leno's going to need to have a great game on Sunday because there's going to be chances. It's not going to be like, although if we could shut the midfield down again, that includes Grealish. So, I think it needs to be a team effort. I know that's kind of a punt, but it really is the answer, that it needs to be a team effort, and there's going to be chances more so, I think, than we had against United. So Leno's we're gonna call him Leno at some point, and he's going to need to step up there. But from a tactical point of view, I think that it's going to be a little bit more. I don't want to say it's going to be much more difficult than it was against United, because United have very fast, quick, dangerous attackers as well. So if we can just keep our mind in the game and just not make stupid mistakes, I think there's obviously we have the quality that we could shut down Grealish, but it's going to be difficult because he's really good.
He's good. Yeah, he's good. 2 assists and a goal against Southampton in their 4-3 loss. I think there's one thing saying about Aston Villa is that they do concede a lot of goals. Up against Emi Martinez as well.
7 goals in 2 games.
7 goals in 2 games. It's going to be the battle of the goalkeepers come Sunday. That's certainly going to be interesting. If he drops a clanger, it's going to be hilarious. But although historically, ex-Arsenal keepers have worldies against us, so hopefully that is not the case anymore. Yeah. It's annoying, isn't it? Yeah, they always seem to. Matthew De Souza, French, asks, can Pepe develop the work rate Arteta requires, or is he just one of those players?
I think a lot of the time with him, it's not necessarily actually about the work rate. He does work hard, and Willian does sometimes lose his man. I don't completely buy into the idea that that's the issue. I think it's more for me about his position. He's not a wide sort of wing player. He wants to cut inside. He wants to be central, and he does. Maybe often take a bit too much time on the ball, or maybe just doesn't release the ball quite quickly enough. So for me, I think it's more about his decision making, what he chooses to do with the ball, rather than him not working back. I've seen him track back against I think it was City in the semi-final and against Chelsea in the final, and for me, he's someone who does work very hard. And Willian, I've seen him lose his marker and has to get scored on. So for me, it's more about just moving the ball, using the ball quickly. That's what Willian does very well. He's a typical wide player, just gets the ball, either plays it out to that fullback or drives towards the box and releases it. And I think that's what Arteta's going to ask Pepe to work on. And I still think there might be a role for him more centrally somehow. I'm not quite sure how yet, but that's where he seems to be magical. So.
Yeah, weirdly, in a front two, he can kind of work. We saw that in his first game away at Anfield. It was kind of one of his best performances, even though we lost the game. But yeah, weirdly, but I just don't know how you would fit that currently. Maybe in a 4-4-2 formation with El Neni and Partey anchoring it. But it's an interesting one to sort of think about. John, to have your say on Pepe. Colin asks, has Pepe been underwhelming this season, or is it a case of just choosing the correct players for specific games?
I think this might be a bit of a false dichotomy, because I think it's a case of both in certain instances. I think that he has been slightly underwhelming, but he's also there's been some moments of brilliance. I'm talking about his basically his solo goal, where he careened from basically the halfway line and scored bottom left hand corner. So and the last goal that he scored off his weaker foot. I mean, the guy's got a goal in him, and there's a player in there somewhere. I still believe that there is a player in there. It's a question of, can he? Can he play? I think that it's been mentioned before. He's a confidence player. He's in a way, I think, like a little bit more of a easily rattled El Neni, because El Neni's also a confidence player, it seems, especially when you're trying to push him to go forward. But Pepe specifically, if he's not confident, he just doesn't play very well, it seems, which is scary. But I think that the biggest problem we have with Pepe is his price tag. I know Arteta has said it's not, but it's Occam's razor, right? what is it about Pepe that could possibly be the reason for his lack of confidence? It has to be the expectations of living up to that price tag. Everyone, and this is, from business executives to anyone, there's this kind of like imposter syndrome that people tend to have, right? Where, and I'm sure everyone's experienced it. I know I have it in certain cases. It's just a natural side effect of being a human being, like, kind of going through the flow of things, whether it's with your job or whatever, even here podcasting sometimes. So I think that when you're looking at him as just a human being, and that price tag is unreal. He is the most expensive player ever for the club. That the level of expectation that entails with that must be mind-boggling. I'm not saying that's the case. Arteta's not saying that's the case, but I could see why it would be the case. And it seems like the easiest explanation for what's going on here. So if that's, who knows? But I think that, yes, he has been underwhelming. Yes, I think part of it is choosing players, but I think a big part of it is just him getting the confidence because there is a player there, I believe.
I know it's... And Occam's razor, obviously, the simplest option being that it is the price tag. But there is just something about price tags and players that I sometimes find hard. What I look at more so is I think a player's criticism is accentuated the higher their price tag was, rather maybe than the effect it has on the player. Because we've seen countless players come into different clubs and perform well, depending on whether it's Rob Holding's 1.5 million or Aubameyang's 60 million pounds. And I understand the point of view that the price tag would have pressure on the player, but I kind of think that for a player like Pepe, that, as French was talking about, is such a confidence player as well, and that confidence is such a huge factor, is if you have 2 games where you don't score, or 2 games where you don't have an impact on the game, just sometimes even 1 game. I mean, you look at how upset Lacazette is when he comes off the pitch and he hasn't scored. Like, sometimes as the type of personality that Pepe is, I just sometimes feel that is enough to kind of knock him off kilter, if you know what I mean.
I mean, that's not good though. Well. That's not good though. If that's very precarious for a player that, on an area of the pitch that we need quality right now.
But he's never had to deal with that before. Like at Lille, he dominated. Go on, French. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's got 3 goals and assists in 4 starts. He's not playing a great deal, not starting a great deal. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's being, again, underwhelming implies what you expect to see from him, what you expect to see from Arteta playing him. For me, 3 goals and assists from 4 starts isn't bad. From a player,
is it 3 goals and 3 assists, or 3 goals?
3 goals and assists. Yeah. Okay. So 3 goal contributions.
Goal contributions.
In 4 games.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Well, why doesn't he play why doesn't he play last game?
Well, this is it. So he gets a goal and then he gets dropped. And so I understand your point about confidence. And then my question would be, does he have a chance to build up his confidence? I don't think that I don't feel particularly worried about him because I see him performing when he does get a chance. I see him contributing. I don't see him contributing over the whole 90 minutes, but I see the player that is there. And I just think that the more we unlock that right side as well, we've mentioned it before, the more opportunity there will be for someone like Pepe. The more we control, being transitioned on and the kind of clicking of the interplay between our front 3 and the number 10 or whoever's in behind as a midfielder, the more we'll see improvement from that kind of elusive, magical quality that we see there.
I hope you're right. And I hope that I'm completely wrong and that it's not a case of living up to the expectation, because I don't know if he'll ever be able to do that, live up to that price tag. If that's what it is, to me, that's a problem. And whether he can overcome it would be one thing, but I hope I'm wrong. And it's just a question of because look, even last season, you could say maybe even had his first season in English football, his first season with 2.5 managers in a new season. And he still puts 8 goals, 10 assists in a season. That's not bad from the wing. So there's like you said, there's a player there. It's just, whatever issues surrounding there, hopefully it gets sorted out, whether it's a positional issue or whether it's a confidence issue or whether it's an internal kind of mental struggle that he's having right now. I really hope that it gets sorted out, because I think that he's a player that could provide us something if he's firing all cylinders.
I'd be interested to see. I mean, Rinat in the chat says Pepe instead of Lacazette, and French, you were saying about how kind of maybe centrally we could try him out, and maybe if you're coming up against one of the smaller sides like a West Brom at home, like one of those games where you can take those kind of risks because they're going to play with a low block, they're going to play very compact and defensive. maybe playing Aubameyang, Pepe and Willian, or Aubameyang, Pepe and Saka as a front three, putting Aubameyang wide, putting Pepe through the middle, putting Saka on the right-hand side. Why not try something in combination just to see if you can get something, or play Pepe as a second striker if you can afford to play him in a front four? Like, just trying something to give him more time on the, because ultimately he flourishes most when he's on the ball, Pepe. Like, off the ball, he can struggle. He needs to be someone that has the emphasis. And when he was at Lille, he had that because he was a talismanic figure. He got given the ball all the time. He was playing in a system which was based around counter-attacking, which was great for his pace and being played in behind. But he's not going to get that on a consistent basis at Arsenal, because ultimately Arsenal are coming up against, 15 teams, usually 14, 15 teams that have less possession than Arsenal 9 times out of 10. So it's a hard system. I think there's also not only the price tag, but the time that he was brought in, for the money that he was brought in, Arsenal should have been prioritising a centre-back or a centre midfielder at that time. And I think that will also count against him. Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think they're all good points.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that is going to round off today's show. So thank you so much for listening, people. As always, an absolute pleasure to have you guys in the chat box. Make sure you drop a like on the video, and we'll really appreciate it. French, massive pleasure to have you on again. It was nice speaking to you so rapidly after our members podcast the other day.
Yeah, definitely. Have to make it more regular, man.
Yes, 100% for sure, mate. And tell people where you can find you and where and what you're going to be up to on the old social. I mean, your Twitter handles are rather entertaining over the recent weeks.
Oh yeah, no, I've begun the Balogun hive. Anyone who's like convinced Balogun is the next best thing, come follow me up French Gooner 23 on Twitter, and Balogun propaganda, Balogun agenda. We're here for it.
I mean, wasn't it Saliba's dad at some point?
Yeah, I was Saliba's dad earlier. I became Burnt a Jay Leno. It was a bit contrived.
Gabriel's dentist next.
Oh dear me, fantastic stuff. And now is it follow? What is it now?
Follow Win Balogun, I think. Yeah.
Baller gun, wasn't it?
Yeah, baller gun. That's right. Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Pyramid,
baller gun.
Pyramid Perlo and now baller gun. This is ridiculous. Jolly boy, always a pleasure, mate. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
You can find me at 305cast, the Arsenal Miami podcast. Haven't done it in a while. It's bad, but hey, look, things are crazy right now.
Am I going to have to get on you again?
Things are
Bring
crazy.
It back. I want to hear that music in my ears.
I know everything across the pond must be swimmingly, but
I don't know what it is. You have an effect on Claire, because every time I ask Claire on the pod, she's busy. But whenever I tune in for the 305 cast, there's Claire.
I'll get Claire on the next one, I think.
Unbelievable.
She's great. That's why.
I know. That's why I've asked her on a couple of times. But no, shunning me away.
Yeah.
You have to have a word. I'll have to get you to speak to her. That's what it's going to have to be at the moment. But no, thank you so much, John and French, for jumping on this evening and to chatting to everyone and giving everyone your thoughts. Thank you, Chatbox, as always, for being absolute legends. Thank you to our TGT ambassadors and to our TGT expert members, and of course all of our other members as well. You're legends. You help us out. Let's just throw some shout outs to our ambassadors: Real Janice, Alex McCarthy, Gary, Brian, Victor, Cole, Owen, Aaron, Jared, 3 points, Rohi, Ed, Matt, and Jimmy. Thank you, guys. Of course, the international break is fast, annoyingly approaching. After the Aston Villa game, we will have a week off until we have to face Leeds, which is a shame. But it does mean that there's space for some additional content, and I'll be definitely calling upon some of you expert members to be coming on some expert member podcasts during that time to fill the gaps. So make sure that if you want to come on the show and have a chat to myself and some other people that are fantastic, make sure you sign up and help support the channel. I know that John has. John's an expert member because he just loves tactical breakdowns.
That's the only reason I do it. It's for the tactical breakdown.
And speaking of which, if you haven't checked out the tactical breakdown I did earlier, it is up there talking about El Neni and Partey and how they specifically broke down that Old Trafford side. So it's some interesting stuff. But please drop a like on the video. Members, if you could, as always, be throwing the emojis into the chat box, and we will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.